Hello, welcome to this edition of Research in the Sciences, a set of method videos for students, by students.
Hi, I'm Zainab.
I'm Michaela.
And I'm Josh. If you're the type of person that stresses about writing research papers because you struggle with the ability to write succinctly, worry no more. The challenge in succinct writing involves stating importance with as few words as possible.
So what exactly does writing succinctly mean? And why, as a scientist, should I learn how to do it?
Those are both great questions, Michaela. But before we continue, let's take a moment to test our viewers' knowledge of what writing succinctly entails. Please pause the video and answer the questions that appear on the screen. True or false? Writing in active voice saves words. True or false? Writing succinctly does not matter that much to scientists. True or false? Using industry vocabulary improves manuscripts. True or false? The proximity of subject and verb correlates to sentence length. Hello again, and thank you for completing the pretest. You may be unsure about the answers, and that's fine, because by the end of the video, the answers will be second nature. In addition, by watching this video, you will learn how to A. Set a goal to reduce your word count by 10%. B. Identify and remove passive voice. C. Get rid of wordiness by remembering the acronym AJAR. Let's get started with answering Michaela's questions with a definition. Writing succinctly means being clear, engaging, and including all the important information in the fewest possible words, or in one word, succinctness.
That makes sense! Writing succinctly does not mean giving up important information, but instead means cutting out unnecessary words. We would tell a little kid to use their words to solve a problem, but in this case, we want you to use less words to write better.
Yes, less words.
So why does the field of natural science value succinct writing?
Scientists value succinctness so they can read quickly and effectively and get back to their lab work. Besides just time, writing succinctly saves money. Did you know that scientists have to pay to have their works published? Words cost money, so it only makes sense that the author would want to save words to save money.
What you're saying makes sense, Josh, and I'm starting to understand the importance of writing succinctly for scientists, but I'm still not sure how to do it.
Well, as I said before, Michaela, most students, including myself, have trouble writing succinctly, but anyone can learn how to write succinctly with a few helpful strategies. When I read a professor's rubric and I saw a 2-page limit for an assignment, I can't help but immediately wonder, how can I get everything in just 2 pages?
Yes, that's exactly how I react.
Well, let me share a little secret that I've learned in methods class. Your paper does not have to be 2 pages when you first write it. When you write your paper and it passes the maximum length, don't panic. Several easy ways exist to cut the length of your paper and improve the content without losing any important information.
Well, that's a relief.
So now, let's talk about the basics of writing succinctly.
Think of writing succinctly like creating a good sandwich. The simpler, the better. And you can appreciate all the ingredients. If you have too many condiments, the sandwich ends up a sloppy mess. Important ingredients fall out and you struggle to eat the sandwich. The same applies for your work and your anticipated future audience appreciation of it. The basic strategies of succinct writing include: 1. Set your goal to reduce your word count by 10%. 2. Identify and remove passive voice. 3. Get rid of wordiness by remembering the acronym AJAR. A. Agreement between the subject and verb. J. Jargon eliminated. A. Adjectives stronger and fewer. R. Redundancy is eliminated. To remember these quick tips, do not leave the door to your writing ajar. Close it with tighter word choices.
First, set a goal to reduce your word count by 10%. Decorative words should be cut. Sentences 1 or 2 commas away from being run-on sentences cry out for editing. Eliminate compound, complex sentences and multi-clause sentences. The simpler the sentence, the more concise.
How to identify passive voice. Passive voice uses words such as was, were, had, am, and is, being, and been. Passive voice uses phrases and prepositions such as to be verbs, will be, of, and by. Look at the example on the next screen and identify what makes the sentence passive. The word were and the phrase had eaten drag out the sentence and make it passive. Here's a helpful tip found in another student video. If you can put the phrase by zombies at the end of the sentence or clause and it makes sense, you need to change it because it is passive. Instead, consider this. Snails found in the louse rice paddy field ate all of the harvest.
Now, step 3, close the door on words with a jar. Identifying areas for agreement of subject-verb location. Writing succinctly engages the audience by presenting all information in a streamlined form. To do this, place the verb as close to the subject of the sentence as possible. Also, lead with the subject for a strong sentence. Consider this example. Notice that we switch to the subject's active performance of the action. By placing the subject closer to its verb, we created a shorter sentence. Next, jargon eliminated.
Your work must be easy to understand by readers in and out of your field. If a word does not clarify the content or likely not known by the intended reader, get rid of it. Investors and board of directors do not always have backgrounds in natural sciences, so if you want to obtain a grant, you need to provide the readers the necessary tools for understanding your information. Compare these two sentences. The field of apple snail research, the result of 30-plus years of 40 ecologists and molecular biologists working in field and laboratory, focused on identifying and trying to control non-native species of the Panacea genus of the family Ampullariidae with millions of dollars of grants and federal funds, have successfully identified over 6 threats to native wetlands and their limiting factors. Now the succinct version. Apple snail research built by ecological and molecular insights that focused on identifying and controlling non-native Panacea species points to 6 threats to native wetlands already vulnerable to invasion.
Getting rid of wordiness. Many ways exist to construct a more concise paper, but start with exercising certain words. Remove redundant words, phrases, and sentences. Avoid repetition that will bore the reader.
Use stronger, fewer adjectives. Ambiguous, vague wording appears weak and leaves the reader guessing, taking away from the intended content and obscuring the purpose. Replace vague wording with powerful and specific wording. Check out the example on the next screen. Replace destructive, plant-consuming, and quickly reducing with one word that encompasses all 3 words. Replace really big with a stronger adjective. Look at the next screen.
Do not repeat a sentence. Do not rewrite a focus point, in other words. You waste precious words and space. Whatever meaning you wish to relay, say it once, because you want to fill your journal with as many different areas of importance as possible. Let's take a look at an example. On average, apple snails do not survive in cold and wet conditions. These 2 sentences mean exactly the same thing. Apple snails as a species thrive in warm and dry environments. Therefore, no need exists to include both sentences. Now that we have learned the rules of writing succinctly, our words form a direct passageway to meaning rather than a maze that conceals. Let's practice the implementation of the rules. Here's an example. The snails used in the experiment were collected by undergraduate students. After being collected, the snails are put in a very big mesh enclosure. While in the enclosure, the snails were fed one of 3 species of plants. After spending 6 weeks in the enclosure, Researchers removed the snails and measured them.
The first thing to do is to set a goal to reduce your word count by 10%. Then we will look for passive voice, jargon, and redundancy. 1. Eliminate the use of any word that has passive voice. 2. Eliminate overuse of the word enclosure. 3. Replace very big with a stronger adjective. Undergraduate students collected snails and placed them in a large mesh enclosure. Students fed the snails one of 3 species of plants for 6 weeks, after which they removed and measured the snails.
So how do you feel about writing succinctly now, Michaela?
My confidence level has definitely increased. Writing succinctly isn't as hard as I thought it out to be.
So there you have it. Writing succinctly isn't something to stress about. It really isn't that hard if you remember the rules we mentioned.
Okay, so let's recap before we go. When writing succinctly, you need to set a goal to reduce your word count by 10%, identify passive voice in your paper and replace it with active voice, then remember and think about closing the door on wordiness. A jar, agreement between subject and verb. Jargon eliminated, adjective stronger and fewer, redundancy eliminated.
That's right! This concludes our video. I hope all you now feel more confident in your ability to write succinctly. But before we go, please retake the test you took at the beginning of the video to test your newly acquired knowledge and understanding.